Lara always knew that her life would be like this. She was never out of big dreams oars. Routine was always her comfort. She woke up early, took care of the house, did her work, and at the end of the day, everything went back to normal. She was a good, efficient nurse, fulfilling her role without question. She was all she had left after all she had gone through. What else could she expect? But that morning something changed. When he first saw him, he didn't know who he was. He was in the garden, arranging the flowers he rarely looked at, when suddenly he appeared at the door. Lara watched him for a moment, not knowing what to think. His expression was a mixture of curiosity and something else. Maybe too bad, or maybe she was wondering. The man who appeared before her was tall, imposing, wearing a suit that made it clear how far he was from her world. Her hair was impeccably combed, and her posture exuded confidence with every step. Lara knew he was her new boss, but she didn't expect him to be this way impressive. "Hello, you must be Lara," he smiled. A quick smile, but that seemed to carry some weight. "Alexandre Marquez." Lara just sat down. She didn't know what to say. How could she talk to someone like him? He who had the world at his feet, and she who could barely handle hers. "It's a pleasure, but I'm going straight to the point," he said, as if realizing her hesitation. "I would like you to make some changes here in the house. I need someone to take care of all the details. I count on your dedication." Those words were etched in Lara's mind, not by order or content, but by the way he uttered them. Her tone was authoritarian but not rude. She was firm and determined, which quickly made her understand that she wasn't dealing with just any man. Deep down, she realized it would be difficult to keep the distance she always kept at work. In the early days, their relationship was normal. The boss, she the princess. There was nothing else to add. But he started to appear more often in the house, which made Lara realize how much he was always on the move. He had an impersonal way, as if everything around him was just a means to an end. But then he started looking at her differently. Something in her eyes has changed. Sometimes when he walked past her in the kitchen or hallway, Lara felt the weight of his gaze on her back. It wasn't just a casual look. It was deeper. It was something that bothered her, that made her uncomfortable and at the same time attracted. She wondered what he saw in her. She who had always been so careful to keep her distance, not just physically but emotionally. He seemed to sense something that Lara was trying to hide, but which he managed to dig up with disturbing ease. That particular day he showed up at the office, and she was cleaning the windows. She knew he was there. She could feel her presence. When she looked up, her eyes met. She quickly looked away, feeling a heat come up the back of her head. But he didn't take his eyes off her. "Lara, you—" He hesitated for a moment but continued. "Can you help me with something?" She looked at him, surprised by the sudden change in the way he spoke. It was like he was trying to be kind. "Of course, sir." Her voice sounded more tense than she would like, but she didn't know how to hide the anxiety that grew inside her. He looked at the piles of documents on the table and, for a moment, seemed lost in his own thoughts. That silence, however uncomfortable it was, forced her to stay there, waiting. I don't usually delegate things, but I feel like I can trust you," he finally spoke in a heavy tone. "I don't know exactly how, but something about you makes me believe that." Those words poured down on her like an avalanche, leaving her speechless. She, a simple princess, being recognized by him. By a man who had it all? She didn't know what to say. And then, to try to escape something that was beginning to scare her, I muttered, "I'll do my best, sir." He looked at her with a look she could not understand. Her eyes were so deep, so intense. Something told her that he wasn't just seeing the woman in front of him, but something else. Something Lara didn't even know about herself. At that moment, she knew. She knew her life was about to change in a way she couldn't control. She, who had always tried to keep her heart safe and secure, now felt something for that man she shouldn't have. Something dangerous. And worst of all, she knew that at any moment he could discover her secret. The secret that kept her away from everyone, and that she would never let anyone find out. Not even him. Life, she thought, can be ironic. When you least expect it, something happens and nothing else will be like before. And at that moment, with the pressure of that look, Lara knew that her world was about toll. Life seemed to go on as usual. I woke up once again to the sound of my alarm clock. following the same routine as always, with no news to surprise me. How could I? I knew what to expect each day. I knew exactly what to do, what to wear, how to smile without people realizing the emptiness inside me. It was okay, or at least I was trying to make it look like I did. But something was happening, something I couldn't control. He started to appear more often at home. Alexandre Marquez, the boss, the man who watched me in a way I couldn't understand. At first, I tried to ignore him. He was just another boss, one more person in my life that I should keep my distance. But the more time I spent around him, the harder it was to ignore him. I didn't want to feel what I was feeling. I didn't want to let him get close to me. But he had a way of being that left me defenseless. Sometimes when he called me to a specific task or simply to talk about something related to the house, his gaze seemed to settle with an intensity that made me want to look away. There was something in his eyes, something so deep it hit me every time. I've always been good at hiding my feelings. Maybe it was a matter of survival. After everything I went through, I learned to control my emotions, to create an invisible barrier between what I wanted and what I could have. But with Alexander it was different. He seemed to see beyond the appearance I had created, and that scared me more than I was willing to admit. I remember one day in particular, I was in the kitchen, arranging the shelves when he walked in. The sound of his echoed down the hall and I felt a growing tension in my chest. He approached, as if he knew exactly where I was, as if he knew what I was feeling. "Lara, may I speak to you for a moment?" His voice was soft, but it carried an authority that made me hesitate. I turned around, trying to keep calm. "Of course, sir," the normal answer, the one I always gave. But inside I was at war. He approached, so close that I could feel the warmth of his body. I didn't know what he wanted, but I knew that his mere proximity was already disturbing me. "How are you adapting here?" he asked, still watching me with those intense eyes. This simple, almost question took me by surprise. It was genuine interest, something I didn't expect from him. I didn't know how to answer, so I gave a standard answer. "I'm fine, sir. I'm just doing my job." He swayed his head slowly, as if he wasn't satisfied with the answer. "Don't misunderstand me, Lara, but you walk more quiet than usual." Her expression softened, but there was something else there. "I think you have a lot more to offer than just being a good employee." Those words, though kind, struck me deeply. He wasn't just talking about my work. It wasn't just about efficiency or tasks well done. He was seeing something in me, something I was trying to hide, but somehow he seemed to feel. Fear grew within me. "Me?" he asked, but I was speechless. What could I say? What could I say about myself if I didn't even know who I really was? He noticed my discomfort and, in an unexpected gesture, took a step back, as if he were trying to give me room to breathe. "Sorry if I made you feel uncomfortable. Well, you are an interesting person, and I wanted to know more about you. It's not every day that we meet someone like you." Those words, I didn't know what to say. Something inside me wanted to thank you, but my mouth refused to speak. I knew he wasn't just being nice. He was starting to see something in me, and I didn't know how to deal with it. Over the next few days, everything seemed to fit together. He was more present, more attentive to details, always watching me more closely. I tried to ignore it, but it was impossible. He was constantly in my thoughts, and the most disturbing thing was that somehow I was starting to like his attention. The moments when he approached to talk, I felt my heart race for no reason. It wasn't just the figure of the boss. It was something else, something I wasn't prepared to face. He made me feel things I didn't want to feel, things I couldn't feel. But as always, I tried to hide. I tried to keep the emotional distance that had always been my learning experience. I knew what would happen if I gave in to this feeling. I knew it would be a weakness, a failure I couldn't allow. So deep down I made the decision to leave. Every time he looked at me intensely, I tried to focus on something else. Work, home, anything that kept me from succumbing to what was starting to grow inside me. But he didn't give up. He kept trying to get to know me, looking at me with that curious look, as if something inside me was a poison he was determined to unravel. And I didn't know how far I was going to go to keep him away from my heart. I only knew one thing. I was falling in love with him. I didn't know how that had happened. Maybe it was fate, or just the inevitability of something about to happen. I knew that somehow things were approaching a point of no return. When I saw Alexander watching me with that intensity, something inside me became clear. I was falling in love with him, and that was the last thing I needed. Life has taught me how to keep things under control, not letting anyone get close enough to see who I really was. But him, he did it without even trying. Every time he spoke to me, every smile, every gesture seemed to break the barrier I had built with so much effort, and that terrified me. I knew that my past, the secret I carried, was a ticking time bomb about to explode, and he, with his insistence, dug it up more and more. I was already starting to wonder how long I could hide everything from him. He deserved the truth, I knew that. But at the same time, I knew the truth could destroy him in ways he could never have imagined. What would he think of me if he knew who I really was? That night, as I was cleaning the kitchen, the doorbell rang. I looked at the clock. It was late for visitors. I hesitated for a moment, but as usual, I walked to the door. When I opened it, my body froze. She was a figure from my past, someone I hadn't seen in years, but who, at the same time, had never left my mind. The woman in front of me was a reminder of the darkest days of my life. "Lara." Her voice was soft but steady, and immediately sent me back in time. "We need to talk." She didn't need to say anything else. I knew exactly who she was, Marina, an old friend, but also a direct link to a chapter in my past that I'd rather forget. I quickly closed the door behind me, but at the same time my body was in a panic. I didn't want to, I couldn't face it. Not with him, not now. "What are you doing here?" I almost whispered, trying to keep my voice calm. But I knew I couldn't hide the fear I still felt for that woman. "I know what you're doing, and I know what's going on between you and the billionaire," she said with antic smile. But there was something threatening in her expression. "Don't be fooled, Lara, I know what's at stake. And if you keep getting close to him, things will get out of hand. You're going to lose everything you've conquered here." Her words were like a punch in the stomach. I knew Marina wasn't just talking about me. She was talking about the secret I was hiding, something that could destroy my life, the dignity I had left, and now even my job. If she told Alexander what really happened, what I did, he would never look at me the same way again. He would hate me. I would have lost everything. And that's what Marina wanted. "You can't do this," I almost begged, but I knew she wasn't interested in my pleas. She wanted to see me hit rock bottom, and I couldn't find a way to stop her. She approached, like a snake preparing to attack. "I'm just telling you to be careful, Lara, because after you surrender, there's no turning back. And I'll make sure he knows the truth. The truth about who you really are." I looked at her angry but also scared. I didn't know how to react, what to do. What she was saying was a warning, something I feared, but I also knew it was true. I couldn't hide my past forever. If she found out, there would be nothing else between Alexander and me, and everything I was beginning to feel for him would be ruined, torn apart by the truth. Marina gave no more explanations, just looked at me with a cruel smile and walked out the door, leaving me alone, with the weight of her words echoing in my mind. I knew time was running out. The next morning, everything looked darker. The house was quiet, and I could barely look Alexander in the eye, afraid he would see the turmoil inside me. Each time he approached, I felt a tightness in my chest, as if the truth was about to reveal itself, as if he could see through me. He was different, more attentive, and it bothered me. I knew he was starting to notice something, as if his gaze was becoming more and more penetrating, as if he was trying to understand what was wrong with me. That day, while I was in the living room organizing some meals, he walked in. I felt the pressure of his presence, as if he was silently watching me, waiting for something. "Lara," he started with a soft but serious voice, "I need your help with something, but I need you to be honest with me. I noticed that you're far away. There's something going on, isn't there?" I knew he was referring to what I felt. He tried to understand, as he always did, but I didn't know how to lie to him. Not anymore. He didn't deserve that, but I couldn't tell him the truth. Not with the past still so raw inside me. I looked at him, and for a moment all I could do was shake my head. "Is nothing, sir. I am just tired." "Nothing serious." He watched me for a long time, as if trying to read my soul. I knew he didn't believe in me, but for now he didn't question anything else. He just turned around and left the room. But inside me, the tension only increased. I knew I couldn't keep it a secret much longer. At any moment, he could find out. And what would happen when that happened? The fear of losing everything consumed me. I needed to make a choice. And she didn't know if she was prepared for the... I knew the time would come when I could no longer hide the truth. I couldn't run anymore. The fear I felt deep in my stomach was starting to turn into an unbearable weight. And I knew that sooner or later, he would find out what I was trying so hard to keep buried. I could no longer maintain the appearance, the lie I created every day to protect my life, what was left of it. That day, however, would be different. I knew this from the moment I woke up. Something was in the air, as if the universe was preparing to force me to make a decision, and I knew that decision wouldn't be easy. That morning, when I walked into the kitchen to make coffee, my hand shook while holding the cup. The sound of porcelain pounding louder than usual as a warning. My thoughts were in turmoil, and my mind staggered with the weight of what was to come. I didn't want to do this, but I knew there was no way to postpone it any longer. The truth needed to be told, or I would miss my chance to be happy with him. I didn't know how he would react. I knew there was a good chance he would look at me differently, with or even disgust. What I had done. It was a crime, something I wouldn't even forgive myself for, and now the idea of telling Alexander seemed impossible. He didn't deserve that. He didn't deserve the woman I really was. But I also knew he didn't deserve to live a lie. I was protecting him from something he deep down had a right to know. I couldn't go on like this anymore. So when he walked into the room and found me lost in thought, the decision was made. Lara. His voice was soft but steady as usual, and it lifted me out of my reverie. He was there, standing at the door, looking at me with that expression of someone who feels that something is not right. He always had the gift of seeing what I was trying to hide. You look distant. Are you all right? I was silent for a moment. What could I say? What should I say? He was so close, so attentive, and I knew he was already starting to become suspicious. His gaze so already knew there was something else I wasn't saying. He was getting closer to the truth. And I had no more strength to lie to him. I took a deep breath. The air seemed to have gotten denser, but I needed it. I needed that moment. I needed to get the truth out of me before it was too late. Alexandra, me... My voice failed for a second. He took a step forward, approaching me. I could feel the warmth of his body. Her closeness made me feel even more vulnerable, but it also gave me the courage. Something inside me knew that no matter how difficult it was, I could no longer bear the weight of the secret. He said nothing. He just watched me with that intensity, as if he expected me to continue. The silence between us was deafening, but I knew it was my time to speak. There was no going back. Me, I took a deep breath again, this time harder. I'm not who you think I am. I'm not just the woman who takes care of your house, Alexander. Me, I have a past I prefer to leave behind. But now I can no longer hide it. He was silent, his eyes fixed on me, and I knew he was feeling something else. Something he didn't expect. Something he still couldn't understand. What do you mean by that, Lara? He asked in a calm voice, but now with visible concern. Fear took hold of me, and the words came out hastily. I didn't know where to start, but I knew I needed to be honest. He deserved the truth, even if it meant taking him away from me forever. A few years ago, I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. Something I can't change. I was involved in a crime, Alexander. Something serious. I didn't know what to do at the time. It was a bad choice, a desperate choice. 'Cause my voice failed, and tears began to roll around without me being able to contain them. I was desperate, and things just got out of hand. I couldn't get back, and there was no way to fix it. So I tried to run away, I tried to start over, but my past never left me. He stills me. He was silent, just watching me. I didn't know what he was thinking, but I knew that every word I said took him even further away from the woman he thought he knew. He was hearing the worst of me, which I didn't want him to know. What I most feared he would find out. Lara, he started but failed to continue immediately. His words seemed heavy, carefully prolonged, and made me want to hide even more. I know you must hate me now, he interrupts, with the pain in his throat making words difficult. I am not a good person. I made a mistake. a mistake that cannot be erased. And if you want to fire me or banish me from your life, I would understand. I'm not worthy of your trust." But to my surprise, he took a step forward, came closer to me and looked into my eyes with an intensity I didn't expect. "Lara, nobody is perfect. I'm not going to lie and say I understand everything you've been through. But what you did in the past does not define who you are." Now, his voice was soft but firm. "I know I can't erase what happened, but I also know that you are not the person you described. I see who you are now, and that's what matters." I looked at him in disbelief, not knowing how to react. His words seemed unbelievable. How could he forgive me so easily? How could he look at me and still believe I deserved his trust? He didn't know what I had done. He didn't know how much my past could destroy me. But at that moment, something inside me ruptured. He didn't hate me. He didn't see me as the person I feared he was. And for a second, I felt a hope I didn't know still existed. That night was marked by heavy oxygen, as if the air around us had become too dense to breathe. When he looked at me like that, as if he was willing to understand, my heart raced. But the sense of relief was soon replaced by an even greater weight. He knew the truth, and yet she was still there before me. I couldn't believe he hadn't changed his mind, that he was still willing to give me a chance, to see me as someone worthy of his trust. But I knew that as much as I tried to understand their reaction, the truth was there among us, and it would not be easy to deal with. I met that night lying in bed, literally, with my eyes fixed on the ceiling, thinking about what had just happened. Everything I feared had been said aloud. Everything I had tried to hide, everything I wanted came from my memory, was now there exposed. The feeling of being so vulnerable before him was frightening, but at the same time, liberator. I had finally gotten rid of the burden of secrecy, but I knew the consequences were yet to come. There was no way of knowing what he really thought, how he really felt. I knew he was trying to be kind, trying to understand, but there was something in his eyes that told me he was still processing everything I had said, and maybe I wasn't ready to face this reality. The next day, everything looked different. The house was silent, and I felt Alexander's look in me constantly. I saw the way he looked at me, trying to read my reactions, trying to find some clue as to what I was really feeling. But at the same time, there was something else in his eyes. He was looking at me, but now more than ever, I could tell he wondered if I could be trusted again. He wondered if what I had done, what I had hidden, was something he could forgive. And I knew that this doubt, this conflict within him, wasn't something I could resolve with words. I was starting to lose myself in my own feelings. Part of me wanted to believe that he really understood me, that he had forgiven me, but another part knew it wasn't that simple. I had made a mistake, a serious mistake, and I knew it wouldn't be easy to erase what I had done. I constantly wondered if he could look at me the same way after all I had revealed. He could forgive me, but what about me? Could I forgive myself? The day on in an uncomfortable silence. Alexander was present, but at the same time he seemed anxious, as if he was struggling with something even he could not understand. I could see it in his behavior, in the little hesitation, in the way he avoided looking me in the eye for more than a few seconds. Each time our gazes met, I felt a growing tension, as if he wondered if he could still trust me, if he could still see me as the person I was before the revelation. It was funny to see how far away he was, how divided he looked. He tried to hide, but I could see through him. He wasn't quite sure how to deal with everything I had said. And deep down I knew he was right. He had a right to doubt. For so long I lied to him, to myself, and now he was trying to figure out if there was still anything real between us. I wanted things to be different. I wanted him to see and accept me in the same way. But the truth was that I knew that his trust had been broken. He tried, but deep down I knew the scars were still there. I guess deep down the worst part wasn't what he thought of me. The worst part was what I thought of myself. I wanted to forgive myself, but I didn't know how. I looked at him and saw the man I had learned to admire. Someone who was everything I dreamed of in a partner. He was strong, confident, but there was a tenderness in him, something that made me feel that if I allowed myself, he could hug me, protect me. But did I deserve this? Did I deserve to be loved, to be accepted by someone like him? It was easier to live in denial, easier to hide my feelings, but now I was being forced to face the truth. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to run away from him, escape all that pain. But at the same time, I didn't want to let him get away from me. I was lost. How could he move forward after all that I had revealed? It was then that he reappeared on the door of the room, with that expression that was difficult to decipher. He didn't seem as confident as before. Whatever was going on in his mind, he couldn't hide it. He was fighting just like me. But what would he do now? I knew he hadn't made up his mind yet. He was still debating whether he should continue, whether he could still trust me, whether what I had done was something he could forgive. "Lara, can we talk?" His voice was soft, almost hesitant, and the tone of his words made me feel even more vulnerable. He was about to make a decision, and I knew that decision could change everything between us. I looked at him, unable to speak for a few seconds. Then finally I replied in a low, trembling voice, "Of course, Alexander. We can talk." He approached slowly with his eyes fixed on me, and at that instant, everything I felt seemed to condense in a single instant. He was there in front of me, and I knew that at that moment he would make the decision to accept me or let me go. And as I looked at him, I saw doubt, tears in his eyes. But there was something else there too, something I still couldn't decipher. He was trying to find me, trying to find a way, but what would be ours? I was about to lose everything. Not just him, but what little of me I had left. The feeling of being on the brink of an abyss, of seeing everything I had built begin to collapse, was unbearable. I knew that Alexander was moving away from me, subtly but more and more evident. He was trying, I could see, but his words and gestures, however kind they were fraught with doubt. He still wondered if he could trust me. If what I had done in the past was something he could forgive. I had reached the limit of my stamina. I no longer knew how to deal with everything inside me. The fear, the guilt, the shame, everything mixed, drowning me. I couldn't expect him to forgive me instantly, but something inside me still had hope. Maybe I was silly for thinking like that. But it was impossible not to want him to see in me the woman I wanted to be, not the woman I had been. That morning he did not show up at home as usual. Alexander was not there for breakfast, and it made me feel increasing anguish. The house seemed emptiest without him, and his absence only increased the weight on my shoulders. I knew he was somewhere, processing everything I had told him. But he couldn't go on like this, waiting for him to make the decision for me. I needed to talk to him. I needed to make a choice. I had to choose between fighting for us or letting him follow the path I thought best. The only thing I knew was that I couldn't go on living with doubts, with the feeling of pulling on a tightrope, not knowing if he would hold me or if I would fall. So I went to his office. The door was ajar and slammed softly, hesitantly. When he picked me up, I walked in slowly. He had his back to the table, and the weight of his posture brought me to a halt for a moment. He still didn't turn around to look at me, and I felt a chill running through my spine. He was determined, I knew it. But what he had decided, I still didn't know. "Alexandra, I know you're trying to understand all this, and I know you're wondering if you can trust me. If what happened in the past, if I really changed. I understand the doubts, the questions you must have. But I need you to know from the bottom of my heart that I am not that person anymore. I'm not who I was. I am the woman who is here now with you, struggling to show that I can be worthy of your trust." He remained silent, but his posture relaxed somewhat. He slowly turned the chair, and for the first time in days our eyes truly met. There was no longer that distance, that invisible wall between us, but at the same time there was a void. Something was being left behind, and the future between us was still uncertain. "I can't change what you did, Lara," he said in a deep voice, but with a softness that made me realize how much he was still trying to understand what he felt. "I know you regret it, that the past's you but me. I still don't know if I can just leave it there. I can't pretend it doesn't exist. What did you tell me? What did you do? Everything is changing. I'm not an easy person to fool. Lara, I can't just ignore what you told." Miss, every word was like a blade cutting a piece of me. I knew he was being honest, and as much as he did see, I had to respect his process. I didn't expect him to forgive me right away. I didn't deserve it. But there was still a flame of hope within me that refused to give up. I didn't want to give up on him, and more than anything, I didn't want to give up on us. "I don't want you to forgive me now," I said in a firm voice but a tight throat. I know I need time. I know you need time, but I need you to see me. Let him see me as I am now, not as I was. I'm not that woman anymore, Alexandra. I'm someone who is trying to do the right thing. Someone who wants to be better. Not just for you, but for myself. I can be different. I could be the woman you deserve. But you have to believe that. He was silent for a moment, and I could see the fight inside him. He was divided, I knew it. He wanted to believe in me, but the doubt, the insecurity, were still there like shadows he couldn't get rid of. And deep down I knew he was right. Time and confidence were things that could not be rushed. I was willing to wait, but he couldn't decide for me. He needed to decide for himself. So he did something that surprised me. He got up from the chair and took a step towards me. He looked more confident now, more determined. His eyes, once full of tears, were now clearer. He shone deeply as if he were pondering his words. I can't give you an answer now. Lara, I need time and so do you. He paused, as if trying to find the best way to express what he was thinking. But what I do know is, I don't want to let it tear us apart. I can't pretend there's nothing. I don't know what the future holds, but I won't let that pass without trying. If you're really willing to fight, then so am I. My heart fired. The words I wanted to hear but feared they would never come. He was willing to try. He was willing to fight. I smiled, feeling a lightness invading me for the first time in days. I knew the path ahead would be difficult, but I also knew he was by my side. And although the past still weighed on us, the future now seemed possible. I looked at him, eyes full of gratitude, and simply said, "Thank you, Alexander. Thank you for believing in me." He looked at me for a moment and, without saying a word, extended his hand. I held her, feeling that finally we were starting over together. If you were moved by this story of love and overcoming, share it with your friends and leave a comment below. Lara and Alexandra's journey is just beginning, and you won't want to miss the next chapters of this narrative, full of tension, choices, and hope. Stay tuned because the best is yet to come.